Welcome to Find Your Way Home. I am Christine Watkins with my co-host Christine
Christine
Bacon. There
Bacon.
she is, giving you a salute. And we are excited to bring to you what we feel are authentic words from Mary, the Mother of God, and Jesus himself. Now, this comes from what is called private revelation. And the church says about private revelation that we are not obliged to believe in it, even private revelation that the church has scrutinized and found to be authentic, such as
Fatima.
Fatima, such as the rosary given to Saint Dominic, that's a product of divine revelation, such as the Sacred Heart of Jesus, such as Saint Faustina's revelations from Jesus in her diary. All of this is private revelation, and God is still speaking. His mother is still speaking. And for whatever reason, God put it upon me to get messages primarily from Mary, some from Jesus, some from Saint Michael out to the world through what I will honestly say is one of the most important books for our age, because we are entering into the end times. What does that
Mm-hmm.
mean? It doesn't mean the end of the world, but it means the end of an era. Things are
Yeah.
going to change. Things are not going to be the same. I think everyone feels something is in the air, that there's a trajectory happening that we as a world community have never experienced before in the world or in the church.
It's
And
palpable.
absolutely, you're breathing it in through your mask.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very obvious that things are different. And it would take a lot of denial to say that things aren't different. And so the book that is out now is called She Who Shows the Way.
I got my copy.
There we go. Heaven's Messages for Our Turbulent Times. And this is a book that has messages from a man he's anonymous, but I know the man who knows him. I know the man who evangelized him. And that is how I ended up with these beautiful messages on my lap. And I believe God asked me to get them out to the world. And they are in this book for those who are called to form a prayer group or read them on their own. They need to be read slowly. This is not a book where you just run through it. Each
Cover to
message,
cover. Right.
it doesn't work that way because each one is so rich. And they were given to this anonymous seer, a man who was rugged, who is the last person you think Mary would choose to convey her message. But she was speaking to him. He heard her voice, and every week he heard her voice for a prayer group. And so these are the messages given to that prayer group over the course of 3.5 years, and this was in the 90s. But the messages are so prevalent to what's going on in the world and the church now. And just to give you a very brief synopsis of what happened, how they came about, is he was rough and tough. He was a man who was a real estate broker. He chewed tobacco at his work, spit out the rest into a spittoon on his desk, wore fatigues when he wasn't at work, was incredibly braggadocious and incredibly obnoxious to the point where people ran away from him at lunchtime, hoping he wouldn't say, "Hey, you want to sit together at lunch?" People scattered because he always knew it all. He always had the answer. He didn't like Catholicism at all. In fact, his mother was a third order Carmelite, and he ripped her rosary beads out of her hand and scattered them and said, "You're wasting your
Wow.
time." Then his friend, whom I know personally quite well, evangelized him. And he began to believe. He consecrated himself to the Blessed Mother. And then God the Father spoke to him while he was driving. He felt something that was akin to heartburn, but yet entirely pleasurable and so strong in his chest that he had to pull the car over. And God the Father said, "The Virgin Mary has chosen you to be her messenger. And if you accept this grace, this task you will suffer. Do you accept it? And he said yes. And then he started to hear her voice. And when he spoke the messages, he would hear her voice intertwined with his, like like a chord. And so
Right.
They have been scrutinized by priests. Several priests never found any doctrinal error whatsoever. They are orthodox messages, beautiful messages, encouraging messages, challenging messages, and for me, first and foremost, consoling messages. I was even consoled in preparing for this show because I did exactly what the mechanic told me not to do to my truck, and I ran it into the ground. I ran it into a lot of money, let's say, into a short life. I did the stupid thing, and I just wanted that's hard on me, just doing something so dumb that could have been easily avoided that causes myself pain. I just that's not when I rejoice. That's not when I tend to praise God. That's not when I tend to feel consoled. But honestly, these things, these troubles in life, these problems that we don't cause and problems that we do cause that inevitably inflict us. Oh my gosh, this book, She Who Shows the Way, Heaven's Messages for Our Turbulent Times, so consoling. She just helped me. And Christine Bacon and I have been so consoled by these messages as well that we're going to take time in this show and maybe the subsequent show to share with you some of these messages. It's too much to get through. It's each message is like a dessert in itself.
Yeah.
Right?
But they're the ones that spoke to us, and each of us before the show went and I had underlined them anyway. We underlined the ones that really, really were powerful. And so, today we've compiled a list of, I only gave 10 or 15. I realized I got through page 47 with probably 46 pages underlined. I'm just kidding, not that many. But so we wanted to share with you. And for me, Christine, it's the ones that are practical that always stick to me because I feel like I'm such a sinner. I'm always trying to do what's right. And I always used to hate it when people be holy. I'm like, okay, what's that look like? Tell me how to do that. So I found attractive in this book because they're so gracious to us that they actually give us instructions on, okay, here's how to do these things that we're telling you. And so today we're going to go over as many of them as we have time to go over. But we don't even know how much we'll get into because one message could be a whole show.
It could be, and we're seeking to bore you as much as possible. I think that's really on the.
You should see us before we go on the air. We are laughing and cracking each other up, but hopefully you crack up too.
Did you think my truck episode was funny? I didn't.
No, yeah. Not when you told me how much it cost.
Yeah,
so we'll just pass that one by.
We haven't told the husband yet. Penance. I don't know how we're going to tell the husband. Maybe he'll watch the show.
Favorite meal.
I don't know how to cook. That's totally going to backfire. He's going to burnt crispy stuff. Is something brown is what I always cook. So yes, here we go. So this is what Jesus says about the importance of the messages, and I thought it would be best to use his words and not my own. Children of God, it is I, your Lord Jesus, who speaks to you now. And I came to you this day for a very special purpose. These messages that you have received from my mother, myself, and other sources are very special grace and gift to all of you. They are for your instruction. They are to lead you on the path to holiness and to an understanding of the important mission that has been laid out before you. Please refer to them. Let them speak to your hearts. So what is clearly happening, and I'm sure Christine has been living this as well, is that this is now moved to the world. As often things do. They start small, and this was for a time for this prayer group. which grew and grew and grew, and then began to meet in a church and grew and grew and grew, and had deacons involved and had clergy involved, and it became a beautiful grace for all these people who grew in tremendous holiness because of it. Now it's for what is said to be the remnant. What is the remnant? People might have heard that word batted about. The remnant are, as we move into harder times, colder times, times when the truth is going to be obfuscated, and the church is increasingly going to be relegated to a past thought, a thought of, well, those bigots who didn't really understand how to truly love. Honestly, that's how Christians, Protestants, and Catholics are going to increasingly be perceived. And so that's going to be tough. And already around the world, a lot of people don't have access to the sacraments. We don't know how much longer churches will be open. And so this is a time when Mary is stepping forth. God is putting her before us through messages like this. There are others, to say, I'm going to show you the way. I'm going to be there. There's a book trailer, which I'll put in the notes below the YouTube video that you can watch. And we won't go over those messages, but those messages are very prophetic about these times, about changes ahead, about her navigating the way. So they are very important, and they are for the remnant who wants to be holy, who want to stand on the rock of Jesus Christ, who do not want to sway with the winds that are going to blow. And so God has chosen you. If you're watching this,
right?
How could you not be chosen to be one of the remnant? If you've made it this far, and like I told you, we're not that interesting. If you've made it this far into this video, then it's really the Lord and his mother saying, please, I want you to remain faithful, and I'm telling you how to do it.
Yeah, because the message that you just read today, just now, was delivered to the group on March 10th, 1993. That was 27 years. They actually started keeping a diary of this. They had a tape recorder, and they recorded him as he was receiving these downloads, these messages. And so that, what I'm reading, Christine, is this urgency, saying very soon this is going to happen, sooner than you think it's going to happen. And now back then, if they would have heard, 27 years from now, this coronavirus thing's going to come, they'd be like, what do you mean? It's going to be soon. I could be dead by then, right?
Yes.
And so, but to me, looking back 27 years, when they were saying it's going to happen soon and when you least expect it, now I'm like, well, we're there. Yeah, just like you said, I feel like we're there now.
Right. And to answer your question, you were asking, how did this man who received these messages, who heard Our Lady's voice, how did he protect them? He was very, very cautious. And he always made sure that he would call out and say Jesus's name, and make sure that there wasn't a violent reaction against it, that Our Lady would say yes, Our Lady would praise Jesus in response to him calling on the name Jesus. And there was one time when he wasn't sure, and he didn't feel quite right, and he wasn't sure if he should proceed in sharing what was being mentioned to him. So he stopped it, and he made sure he called on Jesus again, and there was a disturbance before he was to share the message, and it was the only time where he was shaken by the whole thing. And they would do this in front of the tabernacle. And what was interesting is that after that, his friend, who's my friend, noticed that the tabernacle was in fact empty that day. It was slightly open, and the host was not inside.
Oh.
And they didn't have the same protection. They didn't have Jesus right present there to knock out the devil even further like they always did. And so it was something that was taken very seriously.
Let's give him a name. It's easier for me. So your friend,
okay,
we're
so
going to call
in the
him
book,
John, Robert, right?
Oh, no, he's not Robert. In the book, he's Aaron.
Okay, your friend is Aaron.
And the
guy
locutionist is
messages.
Walter.
Excellent.
You like
Okay,
that?
so let's do that. I do. So
So
Walter's receiving these messages, and
Walter is receiving the messages.
when Aaron came to you and asked you to write this book, did Walter know it at that point, or
Walter
did he
has
have?
receded into the background because this was a great suffering for him. So he prefers to remain anonymous, and he gave over, in a sense, Mary entrusted them to Aaron. And Walter knew that, and Walter years ago let go of them. And so he's
Why was he persecuted by it? Do you know? Obviously, Aaron's going to share these stories with you, but why was it difficult for Walter?
I
I would think hearing from Jesus and Saint Michael and Mary would be like, you know,
I'm sure at the time when he's hearing her voice, because she had beautiful names for him, and he loved her so much that was a glorious thing, that intimate relationship that they developed. But if you're a big guy, suddenly with a lot of people around you, and you were used to being anonymous, you were used to your own vices, you weren't scrutinized,
yes,
every little thing you did or said was not counted for or against you. Suddenly you're a public figure when you don't
mm,
want to be. And
right.
therefore, before he could have a beer and say something wrong, suddenly he can't have a beer and he can't say anything wrong.
So the
And
Lord convicted him and changed him while he was
oh,
receiving these
oh
messages.
yeah, continuously convicted him. But also just when you're a person who doesn't want to be scrutinized and you don't enjoy being in the limelight in that way, that's a cross. That's a
Yeah,
cross. So I think true visionaries do not glory in the fact that
in
they
the
have this
hmm
huge responsibility. And I don't think they glory in the pressure that you are the icon for whether heaven's messages are potentially real or not. That's like having to be Jesus. And I think any of us who step out in the world, myself in particular, by the end of the day, I don't think there's one day where I've said, I pretty much portrayed him perfectly. I pretty much, when people saw me, they saw the Lord today.
right.
Who said that?
That's so funny.
So,
Today
so
I was on the air with my guest, and we were actually talking
she
about
has
a
another
topic
radio show, so that's why she said
Breakfast with Bacon, and go look it up, breakfastwithbacon.com. But we were talking about this not this book, but really about the persecution. The more that you hear God, the more you see God, the more you know, the more culpable you are. Okay, he's shown me his face, so now I've got to do those things he's told me.
more
And
responsibility you have.
more respond to whom much is given, much will be expected. And there is just so much more persecution that comes with it. Oh, you think you're better. Oh yeah, God speaks to you, and whatever it'll be is like, and as you said earlier in the show, oh, you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're judgmental.
And I'm doing
Um,
these books, by the way. The YouTube comments are telling me that I'm doing it solely for money, that's my motivation.
the comments used to be hurtful, and I was actually proud about myself for when we went through the comments on the first show when I gave my testimony. People would say good things, but boy, there's every now and then you get that person's like, well, you sinner, you need to repent. You'll never be forgiven until the day you die. And you're like, I have to be okay, and all of you watching, you have to be okay with knowing if Christine Bacon or Christine Watkins judges me. Do I have to be careful what they think? Or when I stand in front of God and I tell him the same thing? And so that's what I've been doing a lot lately, going, you know what? Yeah, you're persecuting me for that. But if God asked me the same question, it's the answer
Yeah.
I'd give.
So, and I will say, yes, the money does go back into evangelization. Christine and I do this show for free.
Yes.
We pour what we make back into giving to you. Otherwise, I don't think we'd feel right about anything we do. If I mean, you can't even take a vacation to Hawaii anymore. I don't know
Right.
about
I
going
mean, there are
there.
areas that we can make money, but not on this. This is just,
This goes back to
got
giving.
to bring 1 million souls to Christ. I've
Million?
got to bring a
You'd
million
okay?
souls to.
All right. All right now.
It's what he's put on my
So
heart. A
also
million.
people have asked, can we get the messages for free? Yes, I'm going to start uploading them to countdowntothekingdom.com. www.countdowntothekingdom.com. And the book is available on amazon.com and queenofpeacemedia.com. So
Can I just say,
yes.
I read the book. I started reading it during adoration. And if you are an adorer, that maybe you pray the rosary, maybe you read the Bible. I bring everything with me. I bring my Bible, my rosary, and I say, God, it's okay. I put my feet up sometimes I kneel, whatever the Lord had. But when I read this book, I started going through it, and there were moments where I just had to stop. Like you said earlier, you said it's not made to be ingested in one sitting.
Mm-mm.
And you just will feel it come alive like the Bible does, which messages were meant for you. So before we did the show, Christine underlined hers, the one that spoke to her. I underlined the ones that spoke to me. We had some crossover, but they were so powerful that I had to underline them regardless for radio show. I needed to hear those messages, and they changed me.
Yeah.
And I hope they changed me enough, that.
Well, you are a saint right now, and that's what we promise. No, just kidding. We hope that all of us
Yes.
get one step closer
Perfectly
to
holy.
heaven. Perfectly holy is what we both are. I mean,
I hope you guys know we talk to each other about our sarcasm. We love sarcasm. Hey, you want to
Is
off
that
the
a
topic?
sin?
You know
I
what?
think that's a sin. Is there? I think there's a message. You will not make it if you love sarcasm.
Do you know what sarcasm means?
No.
I teach this to my
What does
students.
that mean?
Sarcasm comes from the Greek word sarkasmos, which means to tear flesh. So what do you think Jesus would say about, oh yeah, go ahead and tear your husband's flesh with your sarcasm. Oh, I'm going to hell.
Goodness. Okay, let's move quick.
I used to be so much more sarcastic until I read that.
Oh, that is
I
intense.
really did. And
Okay,
I teach that in my
people.
classes. I'm like, because my whole doctoral dissertation was on humor and marriage,
Okay.
but in all seriousness, humor, if it builds you up, is good, but if humor tears something down, and so you and I are sarcastic on the show. I hope all you viewers know we use it to keep things light because we talk about some heavy stuff. But if your sarcasm is directed at someone, you're tearing their flesh. If it's just randomly, at yourself, that's okay.
I heard that there was a priest who gave, and people remember things that are different. So he gave a one sentence homily, and you don't forget a one sentence homily. And what he said was he went up and he spoke at the podium after the reading and said, "No mean humor," and sat back down. So I'm going to leave that with everyone. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. This is Find Your Way Home with Christine Watkins and Christine Bacon. And we'll come back after the break and we'll share with you what Mary and Jesus are telling us for our times from heaven.
Yes.
Welcome back. We're going to dive right into the messages from the book, She Who Shows the Way. And this is endorsed by Archbishop Emeritus Ramon C. Arguelles in Lipa, the Philippines. And he has said this book should be widely disseminated, all for God's glory and in honor of the Mother of God, for all of us and the holiness of Christ's disciples. So there's so many messages. We're just going to start with one, and Christine Bacon is going to read it. It's about how to handle persecution.
Ooh, very powerful today. So on this one, the Blessed Mother gave the message to Walter, and it says, I know, my children, many of you feel persecution. At times you come under attack, and the persecution seems unbearable. But know this, my children, if you bear them with humility, if you offer them to my Son for the salvation of souls, these trials truly redound to the greater glory of God and defeat the enemy and his minions. Do you want me to keep going?
Yes.
That's the part I underlined. Okay. So many of them, unwitting disciples who challenge your faith and who attempt to lead you astray. Submissive humility, my children, is often the key. But so, at times, is strength, firmness of will, and resistance with your hearts and minds. Pray, my children, often for this.
How many times have we felt attacked or misunderstood or misrepresented, and we err on the side, depending on our personality and our vices, on either not defending what is true or simply lashing out without thinking, and either one can be the wrong thing. And so it's a matter of discernment whether we're to be strong and stand our ground, lovingly but truthfully, or simply submit and not respond and let it be. Let the persecution stand. And, I honestly, Christine, I have a fear with what is happening that so many people, faithful people who love Jesus and love their neighbor, are far too ready right now to pick up a gun.
Oh, we had that conversation last night.
And we were talking about this, and I want to challenge those of you who are just so ready to kill. Because if we're called to be saints, and we look at what a saint does and becomes, you'll find that the people who receive these high places in heaven, whose miracles and intercession on earth have been proven, and hence they've been given the title servant of God, or one step further would be blessed, and one step further would be saint. They are the ones who took this high road of not killing someone.
I was curious after we had that conversation, then you and I hung up, and you think about someone like King David or people in the Old Testament where he said, go out and slay the enemy. I mean, I know that just to be clear, none of you, we're not saying that it's bad if you pull out that gun and you have to defend and you have to use it. We're not saying that, but we're saying, are you forgetting the power of the supernatural?
Absolutely.
Prayer and defense.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Old Testament is full of killing. Let's be honest. But let's also be honest and say, what did Jesus do when he came? What did he teach the people of the Old Testament? You say an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Love your enemies. So being ready, so ready with a gun rather than so ready to love is not the right preparation of the heart.
Right.
Okay. Right. I understand the Catholic Church does allow self-defense, but if that's where our focus is going, it's like, I'm gonna shoot that so-and-so if they ever da-da-da-da-da. Now, right. Let's just ask, let's be honest with ourselves and say, is that how Jesus thought? When he was led to the cross, did he say, if they dare put me on that cross, I'm ready to so to do it?
Right, but if you reread that paragraph, the two things that stick out are this. I know many of you children feel persecution, but know this, my children, if you bear them with humility. Let's stop there. Because if there's one thing that's absent in the world today, it's humility, right? Now, when I first read the humility prayer, I literally cried, like real tears, not like welled up. I was like, I couldn't read it.
There's a litany of humility, and I'll put that in the...
So I have it here. Can I read part of it? So if you've never heard the litany of humility, and Christine, I'll say, and then you can say the deliver me, O Jesus part, but I'm going to say them slowly and think to yourself, are you able to do this? So the first one, O Jesus, meek and humble of heart, hear me. From the desire of being esteemed,
deliver me.
From the desire of being loved,
deliver me.
From the desire of being extolled,
deliver me.
From the desire of being honored,
deliver me.
From the desire of being praised,
deliver me.
From the desire of being preferred to others,
deliver me.
From the desire of being consulted,
deliver me.
From the desire of being approved,
deliver me.
Now here's where they really got hard for me. From the fear of being humiliated,
deliver me.
From the fear of being despised,
deliver me.
From the fear of suffering rebukes,
deliver me.
From the fear of being calumniated, which means be kind of slandered,
Deliver me.
From the fear of being forgotten.
Deliver me.
From the fear of being ridiculed.
Deliver me.
From the fear of being wronged.
Deliver me.
From the fear of being suspected.
Deliver me.
You want me to finish with the last ones?
How many are there?
There's just 6, I think, but this is Jesus grant me the grace to desire it. But if we stop first with those, Christine, when I went through that, I realized how many of those I wanted so badly. I wanted to be loved. So I couldn't even say, help me to not want to be loved. And I was like, but I want to be loved. Being extolled, being honored, just why did my grandchildren call their other grandmother and not me? Why didn't they call? But there's many a grandmother or
that would hurt a
parent that
grandma,
thinks that.
sure.
Or think of parents who are divorced and the kids are with the other parent. It's like, why did they want to go to their dad's house and not mine?
yeah.
So if you and I make this real and go instead, because we're talking about persecution, and to fight persecution is with this. So the ability to say, you know what, I'm glad they chose the other grandmother. She needed their time. Or, you know what, I'm okay that I'm not being loved because Christ loves me. That from the fear of being humiliated, my prayers literally were, God, help me to never be humiliated. I'll admit my flaws, but just don't let me be humiliated when it happens.
Yeah.
And here's a very prayer saying, but if you're humiliated, it's more. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? Right?
Yes.
That's our weapon against persecution.
It's our weapon against the devil. It's humility, St. Teresa of Avila said, is the straightest path to heaven. And pride is so tricky, and it's so dangerous and so ultimately painful. Pride leads to a lot of unnecessary pain.
It's the absolute opposite of the humility. So Satan's proud, Christ is humble.
So humble.
But to think, if you're going to be persecuted, give this to my son. I don't know. I think we need to make it really tangible. And that's why I said, if you're a parent, you're divorced, and your children they love the other parent better. That's a knife to the heart. But if you give that to God.
And I think it's really good to point out that a lot of these that you just said, praying for, are a knife to the heart. And if any of you are listening and you think, I have that knife in my chest right now, and I'm bleeding. My boyfriend just broke up with me, or my mom forgot my birthday, or something that is just so utterly painful. The way to heal that is this all-consuming love and understanding of God. If there isn't a God who just cherishes you, who wants to scoop you up and nurture your every wound and kiss them and bandage them and make everything okay, then this litany of humility makes no sense. But if there is a God who makes everything beautiful, even the worst crucifixion, then it's all used for the good. And there are so many messages in this book, She Who Shows the Way, so many that from so many different angles teach us how to take these extreme or minor pains of everyday life and to turn them into the most beautiful graces for the world and for us and for our families, so that nothing is wasted. So that me running my truck into the ground and terribly scared to tell my husband about it is going to be one of the most beautiful things when I die and I look back and I say, wow, I used that the right way. I didn't sink into despair and pain and beating.
Well, maybe there's your homework for tonight.
I got homework.
The persecution is your humility and telling him what you did.
Absolutely. And not, honestly, because sometimes it's
not fearing the rebuke.
And also fearing the rebuke of myself toward myself.
Because you made the mistake.
Because I could just keep slamming that finger on me, saying you were.
But here's the joy of what we're talking about. We don't want any of you guys to go, oh, you got to be humble. Remember, the last shall be first. If you humble yourself and you let someone else go first, if you're humble here on earth, you will be rewarded in heaven. And it's not a fake reward. It's really, I mean, there's
No.
a hierarchy in heaven. There's a
There are
hierarchy. The top
levels in heaven. Yes.
here, and the worst sinner is going to get a bungalow, when the greatest, sinner is going to get a mansion, castle, who knows. But the Lord isn't telling us to do this stuff just to test us. Like, let me just make you be
No,
humble
it's
and
because
see
the
how you like.
reward is beyond all understanding. And the need to love, and I think this moves into another quote that is on page 50 and 51 of the book. It's kind of about how to evangelize, right? So this is not easy. So
Mm,
here's how it goes. This is powerful.
mm,
There is nothing more wretched in all the universe than a soul that rejects him.
mm.
I implore you to pray for those souls. And this is a message from Jesus, one who rejects God. Show them charity beyond the charity that your human selves allow. I ask you through prayer to infuse your charity with mine. The effects of this will not be seen immediately. No, possibly not in your lifetime. But it continues. It goes on and on, my children. So I ask you to go forth and proclaim boldly the Father's love. Do not be afraid. You have all seen and witnessed recently the enemy's attempts to confuse and dismay, and I'll explain what happened. You have seen his control of your means of communication, how he can take 2 or 3 of your number and make a mockery out of it, a conflagration of my church. Again, I tell you, this rock he cannot harm. I ask you to take this message into your hearts. Love and share with one another as I leave you now. So what happened when this message was given was that there was a beautiful church event. 1,500 came, loved it. 3 people protested outside, and the media came and interviewed those 3 and made it seem like a terrible disaster. So I think it's very important that people understand that now, more than ever, perhaps in the history of the world, the media is not controlled by Jesus.
Right.
The media is not putting forth what God wants us to be or do or see or anything. From the commercials to the news to the TV shows, the messages given are, it's okay to sin and we want you to do this. Basically, what the media will succeed in doing and what the powers that be are focusing on, and it's subtle. It's under the guise of making us safe and happy, but what it actually is doing is helping us to be
Tearing us
fearful,
apart. Yep.
alone, isolated, cold, hungry, despairing. And it's working. It's working.
Yeah.
To tear us apart from one another, to think that to suspect one another and to be fearful of one another and not to love one another in self-giving is the way to go.
Well, even those subtle signs that you see billboards, I know you must have them by you, because here I'll drive and you'll see a picture of a young man with a mask on, an eye mask up for my mom. And then you drive a couple miles,
Yeah,
someone else like,
yeah.
eye mask up for the neighbor. Do what's right, wear a mask. And it's just so subtle. It's like, look what a wonderful thing it is. But what it's really saying is, you go ahead and judge everybody who's not, because if you're not, you don't care about anyone. And there's even persecution there in the masking or the not masking, in the freedom to
Yeah.
choose. Because to me, it's very diabolical. And so don't judge me, because in church, and you're in California, I don't know if our viewers know, I'm in Virginia Beach. I mean, we're covering the coasts, right? Christine from coast to coast. That's what the show should have been called. But to hear that the diocese orders you cannot pray in church, you keep a stinking mask on and you still can't pray because the
You can't
spray's going to
sing
get through it.
because so now I'm not sure where the studies are that say it's better to wear a mask than to take garlic, to put certain antibacterial, lotions on that you can't see, but
Right.
that may very well be much better at killing the virus. Make sure you have this certain, lotion. There's a Good Samaritan oil that I did a video on, that another private revelation from a mystic named Lusta Maria de Bonilla. Her writings have received the imprimatur. She was told by heaven that this certain oils, the Good Samaritan oil put together, kill the virus and other viruses as well. So I put that on, but no one can see that. So I'm very careful to put it on my kids, on me, because I'm less likely to give or receive something. But that is not the socially prescribed means of being protective or
Because
being
they want the
smart.
natural and not the supernatural.
So
You're stupid if you think some stupid oil is going to make
yeah,
you
I'm
better,
stupid.
right?
But also the 6 feet is arbitrary. 666 is the number of the devil. Masks are, and I'm not saying that this is
There's not
necessarily
some good
anything.
somewhere, right?
Of course, there's good. Of course, the people with intentions, there's good intentions. People are good. They want to do the right thing, and they don't want to infect, and they don't want to be infected, and that's human, and that's great. But there's a bigger picture of something that science hasn't quite explained. There isn't a
Right.
scientific measurement of 6. That is arbitrary. It's interesting that 666, like 6 feet apart, 6 feet is whose number. It's just interesting to point out. It's interesting to point out. I heard, somebody can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but you can have your temperature read with your wrist. It doesn't have to be a forehead, and the thing looks like a gun. So why do we have a gun pointed to our heads when we enter the church? It's psychologically disturbing. Why are we not allowed to hug our relatives at Thanksgiving and Christmas? Why is that? There's a health to the body that needs human touch. For instance, there could have been chosen, you all need to take garlic. You need to have a clove of garlic in your system before you go outside, because that fights germs. That's going to
Are
be...
you saying that like you're making that up, or is that serious? And we
It
don't know?
actually, it is very serious. But what I'm saying is that could have been chosen as the
Right.
thing that makes you a good person.
They chose to make the mask.
There was different things that could have been chosen. It could have been the oils. That could have been
That's why I
chosen.
say this is so diabolical.
It's arbitrary. Certain different
Mhm.
health things could have been chosen as the thing that you can either be a good person or a persecuted person or a bad person with. But this is what was chosen. It's the 6 feet apart especially is arbitrary. So I walked into church, and a woman was very mad at me. I hurt my foot, and so I was limping to sit down, and I got the death stare because I was not the 6 feet distance. And then my son sat down. He didn't see the don't sit here sign, and he was 4 feet rather than 6 feet, got the death stare in church. And people, what I'm saying is, I'm not sure that Jesus is looking down and accepting all of the arbitrariness of
Right.
this and
Right.
saying, you who didn't do the 6 feet, you are the one I'm going to judge. Or is he going to look down on us and say, did you really give a person a death stare? And think that that was how you should handle things. I mean, we're being
Yeah.
psychologically
So
manipulated to
that's why it's
fear
so
and hate
diabolical.
each other, and that's
It's
not
all about
love.
division.
So love heals. The Eucharist heals.
Touch heals.
Touch heals. Nutrition heals. There's no talk of what you put into your body. There's
Right.
no talk of
Zinc,
other
orange
times
juice.
of there is hand sanitation, but that's probably more effective, to make sure that you
And can I mention,
bathe and that you clean off germs. There's other things, but what's being chosen is being chosen in a way with the head and the mask to look and feel kind of scary and separate. Let's think about it.
and nonverbal communication, 93% of it is done nonverbally. So your words are only minimal. I didn't say he stole the money. 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 Just your inflections, right? So when we cover the smile, we're taking so much, my degrees are in communication. We're
Yes.
taking so much of communication away. So
Humanity
that's
is erased.
diabolical.
Yes.
Did you realize that your happy hormone, the hormone that makes you de-stress, specifically for women, is oxytocin? Now, men need it as well. Now, if I were in front of you and I was hugging you, Christine, when you put the hands up the back, right where the spine is, that has receptors there that more than any other part of the body just allows your oxytocin to flow. This is diabolical in that they want 6 feet. We are craving touch. I was
Oh,
so cranky today. And I had to apologize to friends because like this ridiculous stuff is, and I'm like, if you are a person and you don't have touch,
oh,
that's what Satan wants. But
oh.
Christ is saying, come together. Satan is saying, divide. Christ is saying, touch. He gave us the Eucharist.
He
He
gave
could
us
have
the Eucharist, and the Eucharist is the great
physical.
healer, and he's trying to
Yes,
separate us from the Eucharist and each other.
it's
And
medicine.
we also we've been robbed of the ability to think.
Yes.
So I do not want to infect my family. But I also know that people are choosing not to see their elderly loved ones who are going to die alone
Lie. Loneliness,
and
untouched.
lonely, untouched, forgotten. And
And Satan sits there going,
yes,
you know?
and it's all being under the guise of the good. So let's just reflect, people, and realize there's a certain way things are being presented as the only way to be safe. And is that really the only way to be safe? We're not saying don't be safe.
We're not judging
We're
you.
not
Don't judge
judge.
us,
Don't
right?
judge us. We're not judging you. I wear my mask. I do it, but I also feel so sad
Yes.
that this is what we've come to, and that I can't smile at someone and they can't smile at me, and that people are not going to their jobs even though they're really healthy. And people are going to confront what mystics say is worse diseases. So as we go forward, folks, and we need to wrap this up, and we'll go into more messages that are very powerful, and a spiritual program that Mary outlines for us that is victorious over all if we follow it. We will bring you that program from the book She Who Shows the Way next time. And look at the video in the notes. Look at the Litany of Humility that I'll also post there under the
Yeah.
YouTube video. And also just take to heart, if you look at these messages as they're posted on Countdown to the Kingdom, or if you get the book, realize that they are for our times, and they're definitely not saying separate and be afraid of one another.
They're saying the opposite.
Yeah.
They are saying the opposite. Be prepared. This is going to happen. Don't be afraid.
And asking us to come together. You can use these messages or something else as a prayer group.
Yes,
Come together as a prayer group.
And this is saying go divide.
This is saying go divide.
And I know Christine Watkins wrote the book, so I'm able to talk about
Well,
it
Mary
more.
and Jesus really wrote the book. I just wrote the
Okay,
introduction.
you put it
but I
together. You put it together.
Yeah.
It is heart changing. It is peace dropping. It is such a good book. I think you need to go and buy it. Go get the She Who Shows the Way, because you'll see what the Lord is telling you. And you will, just like when you read the Bible, and no, of course it's not the Bible, but it is spoken by the people in the Bible. But when you read it, you will find those messages that the Lord is saying, Sarah, John, Fred, do this. And it's like the guidance we need that we've been looking for. The Bible gives us guidance, but the Lord said, I will continue to send you, prophets and messengers. And these are the messengers. I don't know. It's changed me, Christine. I love reading it. I love the ones I have underlined. I have it with my Bible every morning. I read my Bible and I go, read one of the messages that I've underlined, and I'm like, okay, God,
I have to say it's a huge part of my consolation as well. That's what, when I need consolation, it's what I grab in addition to scripture. So yes, and please join me, folks, in a final prayer. And we're going to pray for you, the listener, the viewer, because you're who we do this for. It is for you why Jesus came. For you, why Mary prays. Lord Jesus, Mother Mary, come to each viewer, each listener now. Wrap them in your loving arms. Mary, wrap them in your mantle. Jesus, let them know that the pain that they may be experiencing because of persecution, because they feel like they can't evangelize, because they feel like their hands are tied, their mouths are covered, and their life is being taken from them, the life that they knew. Lord, all of this is a preparation for your glorious return in grace. Lord, you have a plan. You are sending your mother to pave the way. And if we follow her, and if we listen to what heaven is saying, heaven is what we need to be listening to. Heaven is who we need to be obeying. And this is just one vehicle you've given us to do that. Thank you for sending your mom. Thank you for always being present to us. Lift up the hearts of your faithful. Guide your remnant into true peace and true joy. And may you find your way home. God bless you.